Hello viewers, and welcome to a bit more action on Grid Legends. So here we see a bit of control pad action here. Now I wasn't recording the controller, normally I have a little camera, but I wasn't today, but you get the idea. Racing around Brands Hatch. This was my first race before I did it with the wheel in the video you've already seen. Just having a go, see how I get on with the controller. So racing around here then with default settings and trying to make the most of it. Now you'll see my wheel input's a bit different, it's a bit more jerky. Part of that is down to myself and my play. I'm a little bit heavy-handed, predominantly because I am used to using the wheel again these days, but at the same time I'm able to drive it. You'll see I'm driving over the grass. I have assists on. Well, I just turned on whatever the default was when I turned it on just to try it with the pad, and you can drive it fine with the pad really. The same things to avoid on the pad. A little bit of oversteer there, that can happen sometimes, getting used to that with the controller. Some of the curbs is avoiding a crash as we go up, and this is a curb we're coming up to here, which is a bit tricky. Just touch that curb on the inside, tends to drag the car off, so avoid that curb. It was mentioned in the comments actually that there are curbs like this in grid games, so if someone from Codemasters is seeing that, do look into curbs like that. It's a little bit annoying when they just, for any explicable reason, just pull the car off the track as soon as you touch them, as you should be able to roll across those curbs comfortably. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Again, this was my first race in the Le Mans car, managing to overtake much of the field and then bump into them all and then annoy them and then have a tough time getting past them all. But again, it was straightforward, getting used to the car, turning into the corners. Didn't have to worry too much about the back end, anything like that. So if you're new to racing games in particular, it's going to be straightforward, easy to pick up. I know a lot of you watching on this channel aren't new to racing games, but to a lot of the general public who perhaps struggle with a lot of racing games and the time it takes to get good, they can play a game like this and feel like a badass within just a couple of laps. So I didn't know where I was going on this track. I'd never run it, didn't know where I was going, sort of looking at the map and sort of looking at the cars in front of me and then overtaking them because I was just much quicker than they were in terms of, this was I think medium settings and the AI isn't complete yet. So don't take all of that into account. We'll see what all of that's like on the final game, and of course on the final game I'll also go a little bit more detailed into turning assists off and just making sure that it works well there. And the final wheel tuning will be done in terms of implementation, so in that sense I'll be able to check out the wheel controls more. Here we are then, racing down the main straight, just completing this lap. I thought I'd show a lap of a couple of the different circuits before we jump into the trucks now, and here we are, we're going to see those here. Again, all new physics. People talk about the physics and getting an understanding of the physics. The game is still very confused, and I see it in the comments, and people say we want a sim, we want TOCA. It's none of those things. This is Grid. Grid hasn't really changed. The handling model has altered, and the type of lumps and bumps and physics that we had. It was a very rugged ride in the original Grid. You felt like you was in control, but by today's standards it would feel, I would say, somewhat similar to this. I haven't played Grid for years and I don't know where my first copy of Grid's gone, but either way, in terms of the recent copies of Grid and the 2019 version, it's feeling a bit more fluid all round. There's a bit more control. I'm able to position the car much better without oversteer constantly, and it's working very well. The suspension on the trucks is working in a way that feels authentic in its own way. You do need to understand how to prepare the truck for the corner and prepare the trucks for the jumps, just to get your line right. And no doubt with a wheel, getting those wheel settings right is important to prevent oversteer. Again, racing around the London circuit and good control on the car. You can see here, working well, nice and smoothly. I take a wider line round here and cut it in, and that works well for me. Lots of tyre marks and life on those corners around Parliament Square. Works really nicely. So in terms of the overall controller input, it works well. It works like a grid game. I think that we'll see what the final package is like in kind of bringing the atmosphere of Grid together. We know the package is huge. Lots of cars, lots of tracks, cross play, story mode. There's going to be lots in there. I think it's just a matter of, you know, seeing if it has that rugged Grid feeling. If there was one thing about Grid that I really liked the original, was it was rugged, bumping around. It was just a very gritty, rugged driving game. And so far, I think they've captured a lot well. I mean, this is one of my favourite races, racing around Moscow. Big track, you know, what is it? Like best part of 3 minutes a lap, high speed action. You pick up the track quite quickly. There's a couple of areas that are quite samey, so it takes a little while to learn the track, being so long. But either way, lots of intense action, big crowds, and you can see in this direct feed footage, it's all there. So in terms of the actual visuals and everything, it looks great, as I've mentioned before, but in terms of the controller handling, it was all working quite well for me, and I look forward to seeing how it all comes together. I'll try to give you guys as much feedback as possible on builds. If you have questions, if you want a comparison, if you know of a car and track combination that was tricky and didn't handle well in Grid 2019, you're concerned about it, let me know. And that's it really for this quick look at some controller play on Grid Legends. I'll be back with a few more cockpit cam videos in the next few days, and that's it from me for now. As ever, more soon. Hello viewers, well thanks for watching the video today. Do like and subscribe, it supports what we do. Do become a YouTube member. YouTube Patreon supports all of our content you see on the channel, and of course lots of gaming from retro to modern games. I love it all in terms of racing action. So click on one of the two videos just there to find out more.